You're recording?
Nope, I'm recording. We're preparing to live stream. So if you don't mind just waiting a minute, Penny. And if you'd like, what I can do is set the agenda up on our screen.
You're recording?
Nope, okay. Jenny, I did it. All right. Just wait a second, putting the agenda up. All right.
All right. Hey, we did it. There you go.
All right. Go ahead, Penny. Floor is yours.
Well, take it away. Hello, everyone. Happy holidays. It's good to see everybody. Either some, most, I see most. And I'll call the meeting to order for the Saratoga Prosperity Partnership today, December 21st at, is it 4:02? 4:02. The first order of business is adopting our agenda. I mean, our minutes from last time, November 23rd. Did
Make
everyone
that
have
motion.
Second.
Todd?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Vote on the motion. Vote on the motion.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
And opposed? No. Okay. Motion.
I'll do that work next time. Forgot. Okay. Next order of business is the budget updates. Rocky, you want to take that away?
Treasurer's report.
It's a treasurer's report, not the budget.
Oh yeah, I've already jumped around. Boy, you gonna fire me or what?
Nope.
Not at all. Okay.
Gonna have to work harder than that, Penny.
We'll be referring to some of the items in the under
All
old
right.
business under the budget update.
We'll wrap it all up. All right. Go ahead,
but in the
Rocky.
meantime, I will provide the treasurer's report, and I'll be referencing the statement of activity comparison and budget report that was included in the packet, which includes the budget 2019, but budget 2020, and then the percent to budget date, etc. So in any case, this represents information through December 8th, which should represent about 95% of the budget year has been completed from January 1st through December the 8th. In terms of total revenue to date, it's $495,457, which represents about 75% of the budget. And total expenses are $488,363, which represents about 77% of the budgeted amount under expenses. So the bottom line net revenue is about $7,117. On the revenue side, though we have budget of $500,000 from the county based on the projection to the occupancy tax, we've only received and will only receive $375,000. We're not going to receive the final quarter payment of $125,000. And this is something that will be discussed, I'm sure, in more detail under old business when Shelby talks about the status of 2020 and the 2021 budget update. So our revenue picture pretty much, except for some minor monies that may be coming in from some additional grant money or something like that between now and the end of the year, pretty much set about 75 to 77% of the budget. On the expense side, I just want to highlight to you those budget items that those operating expenses that were over budget on, if you will, that the percent of budget is greater than 100%. The first one being health and dental insurance came in slightly higher than budgeted at the end of the day, at about 112% of what we had budgeted. In terms of advertising, that was much higher than we had budgeted for, and we talked about that at the last board meeting. That was primarily due to the New Wave Community Press event in Boston Spa last month. The third item that's over budget, if you will, was cleaning expenses. And that's primarily due to the COVID requirements. There's much more, have to be much more judicious related to those activities than we have anticipated. So we're slightly over in terms of the cleaning expenses. Legal and accounting, we're over by about 30% on that for reasons we've already talked about associated with that at previous meetings. And then finally, under postage, we're slightly over. We're over our budgeted amount on the postage, more than slightly over, significantly over on the postage. We have budgeted $150, and our expenses to date are about $690. And the primary reason for that is the expenses associated with removing Marty's furniture and having it delivered to him, if you will. And that was about $500 cost. So that's why that line item is much higher than it was anticipated. So that's basically that. And I just want to make a final comment in terms of the statement of activity comparison between 2019 and 2020. Compared to 2019, our revenues are down by about $330,000, and our expenses are down by about $285,000, which is a significant adjustment. And I want to point out that this has been a successful effort undertaken by the staff to significantly reduce our expenses in light of the reduction in revenues that were expected to occur in 2020. So significant pivot was required to realign our expenses with our revenues. And that has been, I think we were very successful in achieving that objective in 2020 best we can. There's going to be further adjustments that will be required in 2021 for reasons we will be talking about in a few minutes. Some change that will be taking place that will impact the budget situation. So with that being said, I'm satisfied with the activities to date relative to the treasurer's report that I just presented to you.
We need to vote on that.
Us or just vote?
Okay.
I'll have a motion to accept the budget as
I'd motion to accept the budget or accept the treasurer's report.
treasurer's report. Thank you.
Second.
And second,
Second, this is Josh.
Thank you, Josh.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Opposed?
Abstained?
Okay.
Carried. Okay, our next item is discussing the budget. I was so eager to jump into that before. And I don't know, do you want to start that, Shelby, or is that going to be?
Rocky, would you like to start?
No, I think if you want to start on it, Shelby. Follow from there.
Thank you. As of the last meeting, we had discussed some of the challenges and discrepancies in our budget this year. One of the challenges was we are primarily funded by bed tax from Saratoga County. And because of the economic impact of COVID, things like Saratoga Race Course being closed to fans for the season, SPAC not opening this year, our casino and raceway, and pretty much all of our business meetings for the most part being shuttered since March. Our room occupancy tax has taken a significant hit, even though hotels were seen as an essential business. The projections for our budget were a little over $1 million, because in 2019, that is what room occupancy tax turned out to be. However, I think that amount was 1.1 million or plus. This year, as of December, we have only collected roughly 306,000. And we have this challenge with the county in June and July paid us for our third quarterly installment. We had a contract for $500,000 based on 2019 projections. And that was anticipating that August, September, October would pick up. We did submit a voucher in September that was due to us on October 15th for the terms of our agreement. And we did not get very much movement. I sent an email to the county administrator and the county attorney in December, the first week, asking them what the status of that was. And, you know, understanding that room occupancy tax has been significantly curtailed, we have adjusted our expenses accordingly. However, you know, I did reach out to Saratoga County. They asked us to go to the Economic Development Committee and inquire about, number one, the remaining $125,000 that was owed to us via our budget. But they did report to us they did not pay us for the fourth quarter because room occupancy tax has not, they have not, you know, we're well above 50% of room occupancy tax and what we have received from Saratoga County. So we had two issues. One is Saratoga County has overpaid us, and there was that lingering question as to how the county would either recapture that those funds or either forgive those. And number two, our budget request of $450,000 for 2021, you know, we did hear in the budget discussions at Saratoga County that there was concerns that that amount was over projected. I think that when our budget was passed in October, you know, those concerns were communicated as to whether, you know, our amount was over projected. And ultimately, this year, 2020, is the first year that Saratoga County put any conditions on our budget that said we could not receive more than 50% room occupancy tax. So we have a few challenges. We did go to the Economic Development Committee. Ultimately, they created a resolution that would forgive the overpayment of funds. Right now, it's roughly $225,000. But keep in mind, collections, the county will not close its books on room occupancy tax collections until well into March. And we should know what the full collections for 2020 were, probably late March, early April. So, you know, our budget year does not run coterminous with the room occupancy tax collection year. And this is the primary reason why we asked Saratoga County for a marketing and services agreement that does pay us in January on, you know, either upfront or on a quarterly basis. So because we do not have a reserve fund in place. But what happened at the Board of Supervisors is that they did end up passing through economic development, law and finance, and ultimately the full board. And that board meeting ran about 7 hours, about a week and a half ago. Rocky, Penny, and myself, we attended that meeting. Our portion of that lasted well over an hour. And they did ultimately pass the resolution for forgiveness of room occupancy tax. They did budget $450,000 for the Saratoga partnership, but in the agreement with outside agencies, their resolution, it's called authorizing 2020 agreements with various agencies. They did also cap this at 50% of room occupancy tax, and suggested that both the partnership and SEDC, which is in no other agency, it was primarily economic development, instead of submitting vouchers to the Saratoga County Administrator, what they would like is for the partnership to, they added resolution language to this. They asked the partnership to bring our voucher, copies of our financial statements, compensation schedules, other things, and any other documentation that the Economic Development Committee might need to the Economic Development Committee to advance our voucher payment. So what was primarily an administrative issue is now, we will go to the Board of Supervisors in that Economic Development Committee and ultimately get a vote from the full Board of Supervisors to get our quarterly funding payment. I think Justin here is on the phone. We've taken a look at that resolution that was passed last week. And Justin, would you like to explain some of the discussions that you've had and possibly some of the concerns?
Yeah, sure. And a lot of work was put into working with the county management, the Economic Development Committee, and specific supervisors on the resolution that was processed through the Economic Development Committee, and then presumably to the full Board of Supervisors. But the language that we worked closely on, quickly summarized, involved a minimum of $450,000 paid in quarters or paid quarterly, and then any upside. In other words, if bed tax receipts were for 2021 over $900,000, we, the partnership, would waive those in recognition of the county's support of providing a minimum of $450,000 in those quarterly tranches. During the kind of the marathon Board of Supervisors meeting, a different version was placed up for vote and adopted. It simply states the partnership is entitled to its bed tax receipts per state law. There isn't any guidance in the resolution with respect to quarterly payments, how it would happen, but it did include provision that the presentation of vouchers would have to be done through the legislative process, not ministerially, as Shelby pointed out. It would have to require an affirmative vote of the Economic Development Committee and then a full vote of the Board of Supervisors, which in my mind is beyond state law requirements. We're simply entitled to 50%. The other kind of, I guess, administrative or mechanical issue that, and in fact, I got on this call a minute before the meeting started. I was on the phone with county attorney. He's not sure what it means or how we would, as colleagues or his successor, since he's retiring, would even begin to draft an agreement. There's been a little bit of verbal communication, I think, through Supervisor Beach and others saying and encouraging Shelby to go to the Economic Development Committee in January and then proceed to the Board of Supervisors for a first draw, if you will. It would be $112,500. But mechanically, what is that tied to? The receipts for 2021 for bed tax aren't really recognized until April of 2021. And it kind of begs the question of the next step. If $112,000 is advanced in January, which is a good thing for our continuity of operations to continue to provide services to the county and to the greater county, what happens in April if there's less receipts? Is there going to be a reconciliation, and then from what? It becomes a quarterly problem. Is it a snapshot? And if receipts are good, that's good. But being a lawyer, we worry about potential bad things. There's really, it's kind of we're a little gun shy because we got into an agreement we thought was enforceable for 2020, and that was pulled back well after the fact when the bed tax receipts were much lower than everyone budgeted. So I don't have a magic bullet or a magic answer to provide guidance other than the resolution and the legislation that was adopted kind of raises more questions than it answers. And we're at a little bit of a disadvantage to put an agreement together that we're comfortable with until perhaps Shelby has to process through the committee and board of supervisors cycle in late January. Maybe there'll be more clarity and then an agreement can be signed perhaps, but that's kind of where we're at. I'm happy to answer any questions or provide any clarity or if Shelby has some context, I'm more than willing to shush now. So.
Well, since I am not a member of the Board of Supervisors, we do have 3 supervisors on our board. If anyone would like to discuss what happened or the process, or, we do have Supervisors Lotnick, Supervisor Kuzniers, and Supervisor Connolly. If anyone would like to give any insight into that process, you're welcome to. Anyone?
I can say that there was a whole lot of discussion about it. As you stated, it was a rather long meeting. Most of it was executive session, but there was some give and take and a rather long discussion about how to fund us for the next 12 months. And the majority by weighted vote was in favor of this quarterly meeting session that they want you to do.
Okay. Anyone else? Eric?
I just, listened very carefully to what Supervisor Veach was putting forward, and, during the meeting was outspoken against it. I think it was, well intended with the oversight piece, but the rest of it was just creating a hot mess for us to try to deal with. And quite frankly, we have not figured that piece out yet. I don't think, right? You don't, you don't seem to have clarity on how we function like this, and that's too bad. That's really problematic for you and your staff. The new hire that you're considering, and I know we lost a member of your staff to a competing organization, so to speak. So I'm happy to help if I can help, but this is a numbers issue, and I mean, to me, if I'm in your shoes, I go back to the county and I restate my case to the Economic Development Committee and share with them the logistical challenges that have been created and see if there's anything that can be done to rectify it.
Supervisor Kuzniers, would you like to add anything to this?
Sure. I heard from several individuals that there's a lot of outstanding questions, and I have the utmost confidence that with the new administration coming in, that there will be clarity. All questions will be answered as they're posed. Right now, I kind of hear some hypothetical questions. I'd be happy to take any of those back to the county. But I think with the new administration coming in, that there will be extreme clarity for the partnership and the questions that are being posed on this call.
And January 6th is when the organizational meeting will be.
Correct. Yeah.
For Saratoga County. And at that point, we do not know who the Economic Development Committee is going to be for 2021, so that normally the appointments are made during that organizational meeting. And it's my understanding that, yes, that extreme level of clarity will be there. So that's where we are. Anyone has any other questions?
I'd just like to make a comment from the treasurer's perspective. I'm sorry, Todd, did you want to say something else?
I'm all set. Thanks, Rocco.
Okay. But from the treasurer's perspective, and Michelle had prepared a cash flow statement, if you will, just get an outline of based on how much money we had in the bank, at this time, a couple, 3 weeks ago. And based on the expenses that will be incurred through the remainder of December and January, the bottom line, if you will, is that we'll have less than $3,000 in cash in the bank at the end of January. That's not going to pay the bills starting February 1st. And once again, this is just an estimate. It could be a little more, it could be less. Hopefully it's not any more because we don't have the money. So I think it's important. One thing I want to emphasize is that the Board of Supervisors, with the quarterly payment procedure, reviewing it through the committee and then the Board of Supervisors, that's fine, in terms of making sure there's transparency in the process and we're doing our due diligence. But naturally, we're not going to have any real expenses in the month of January to show, because we have to provide this information to the board, the first week in January, not the second week in January. So it's not going to be based on any expenses incurred during 2021. But it's very important that we receive in advance at the approval for the advance, so a check could be cut before the end of January, because if not, we're not going to have sufficient funds to pay for our bills in February. So I think that's a very important point to emphasize through the discussions that take place internally amongst the Board of Supervisors, with the staff, and at the county level, from a legal perspective, from administrative perspective. I understand the legal challenges, but I'm also talking about the practicality of the need to have cash flow on a day-to-day basis, and hopefully there's a recognition of this. I was impressed at the supervisors meeting, as well as the committee meeting, that though it wasn't unanimous, by no means, there's going to be those who are opposed to the partnership, no matter how many hoops we jump through. The fact of the matter is there appears to be majority support for the efforts of the partnership and their mission and what they're trying to achieve moving forward into the future. So I would hope that the supervisors respect the fact that we need money to operate, to pay our bills, and as such, that a decision, clarity be provided as soon as possible. We'll do what we need to do to assist in that particular effort, with the understanding that the Board of Supervisors would sign off on making us being able to pay our bills that are coming forward in moving forward from January, moving forward, and give us that advance. And then for the second quarter, we'll have some information for the first quarter billing activity to submit to get the advance for the second quarter. But we need this money in advance. We do not have a fund balance to draw down from. We do not have any money in reserve. The money is, we have nothing there. So it's very important that we get the money in advance from the county. The good news is that there's $450,000 that, and as a line item budget, that has been assigned for now. And once again, based on the conversation that took place at the Board of Supervisors meeting that I was able to hear, sometimes audible wasn't that great, even when you were there in person, if in fact the revenue from the bed tax still remains low, going into to the year, that there will be money be provided to this partnership from other revenue sources from the counties to achieve our budget objective of $450,000 that we are requesting from the budget, from the county. Because as I pointed out a few minutes ago, we've taken the staff has taken significant measures to reduce the expenses of the organization. We can only go down so far before we literally have to close up shop. And so I hope the supervisors appreciate the efforts that the staff has taken to achieve what the supervisors would like to see achieved in terms of the budget, and being as lean and mean as possible, while at the same time meeting the objectives that we're assigned to, working in the county, working with all our partners in the county to promote the economic well-being of Saratoga County for existing businesses, existing residents, as well as for future businesses and residents moving into the county.
I have
So,
a housekeeping item. I'm so sorry, but I just noticed on the call. Can someone please identify themselves? 518-369-2847.
Steve Bulger.
Oh my gosh, Steve. Okay, I'm sorry. We were not counting you as attending the meeting. Thank you, Steve.
I have to leave as well. I've got another meeting I need to attend. Sorry to do that. I wish you well working with the county board. I think there's a lot of good reasons to support the partnership, and I sure hope that works out. I think that it will, but it sounds like it's going to be not as soon as we thought it was going to be. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave.
thank you, David.
All right, so we have 10 people. Is there any more discussion? Is there additional thoughts on this?
This is Supervisor Connolly. I mean, it's encouraging to hear that Todd is optimistic that we can work some of this out in the short term when the new administration and the new committee members kind of take their seats. So that was good to hear. I don't have enough experience to know. I just have to take Todd at his word that things can get worked out.
Thanks, Eric.
Go ahead, Todd. Go ahead.
No, he said thank you.
And certainly, the Board of Supervisors, feel free to reach out. I'll be, I will be available to have any discussions or anything as a board member, if you so desire, about, the financials and whatever to achieve our objectives. So I'm available.
Great.
This is Josh. So given everything that Rocco just said about January and the cash balance at the end of the month, unless something happens from the supervisors, do we need to have a contingency plan? Do we need to have something on a piece of paper? I mean, even to Supervisor Connolly's suggestion that, possibly going back to the Economic Development Committee, is part of that conversation have to be, if that 150 doesn't get fronted in January, this is the possible outcome. I mean, I know it's painful and we don't want to talk about it, but it feels like we're assuming that 150 is going to happen and is going to come. And if it doesn't,
It's not 150, it's lower than that.
I'm sorry, whatever that number is to keep us from having a $3,000 balance at the end of January, whatever that number is.
Yeah, it'd be 112,500, and I kind of beating a dead horse here, I guess, but the partnership is a component unit of the county and a supporting organization. So we're no different from the county planning board or another organization like that. We are a not-for-profit, but the county not getting over that hump, if you will, at the end of January and not funding the partnership. And conversely, we're left just to wait till April for whatever reason. And we are a component unit of the county. This is an audit event. This is a management letter finding of the county and potentially a credit rating hit on the county for putting its own organization into a liquidity event. So those are all big words and scary sounding, but it's the truth. So Rocky's concerns and his alarm bells are well founded, and he's not Chicken Little. So going into the end of January is kind of a scary proposition without any certainty on the outcome.
Yeah, and please don't get my comments wrong. I don't believe that there's Chicken Little here. That I understand that it's a legitimate concern, and I guess the question is the county acknowledge those facts that you just laid out there, Justin, in terms of credit and what's at risk for the county itself. And
I mentioned these during the Economic Development Committee meeting and reinforced the component unit and supporting organization role. The county's our sole member. So that's kind of what we are. We're here to help, and we're a component unit that relies on revenue that has been a mixture of appropriation and bed tax historically, and this kind of hard correction into bed tax only is something that, barring Shelby Robin, a bank or something like that, it's kind of hard to predict what's going to happen on February 1st. That's all. So.
Can I ask a question? This affects the county's credit rating in some way then if we had to say we're bankrupt, is that true? Justin, to your knowledge?
Well, I hate to think in these terms because they're so absolute and kind of gloomy, and we're supposed to be trying to enjoy the holiday season here. But if there's a liquidity event, the partnership could legally wind up its affairs, dissolve, and all the assets and liabilities become the county's. So any kind of, whether it's deficit or fund balance, or you talk about the copiers and the computers and the desks, all those things would subsume and go into the name of the county, wherever that would go. But also the liabilities would travel upstream as well. So no one wants to go there. No one wants to make hard corrections. And we're hoping that the certainty would come out of the budget legislation, not more uncertainty. So whatever we can do to advance the ball. I don't know if it's even feasible to have special meetings at the county level. I think they're probably more focused on reorganization, and there's a lot that's going on with that, I understand. So we're fortunate to have the fund balance to get through January, I think, at this point. And receipt of clarity, and being an optimist, hopefully we get some in mid-January and can proceed with some predictable and stable revenues to get Shelby and her team through the early part of the year.
Well, there will be more revealed in January as well. Keep in mind, and I think we'll get to it in new business. We did have another board resignation. We have seats on our board, along with the appointment of committees, chairs, folks like that. The appointment of the partnership board, any open seats. We had advanced to the Economic Development Committee and Law and Finance Committee just the Economic Development Committee, an appointment of a talented person, a person that would add a lot of value to the board. Whether that happens or additional people are considered, there's still a lot up in the air that we will find out in January 6th.
And but I think it's important also from the takeaway from the supervisor's perspective. Once again, attending that meeting of the Board of Supervisors meeting with Supervisor Veach being the author, if you will, of that proposed resolution. He, in his conversations at the board meeting, and those who were, I think, would attest to this, was very supportive of the Prosperity Partnership. It was not that he was looking to terminate the activities of the partnership. He was a strong, he made that point in terms of his discussions. He's just looking for transparency in terms of the payments. So that's fine. So if that's the objective, that's cool. So I hope that message is clear to all the supervisors, and in one way or another, that it's not an attempt to close down the partnership in as much as to continue the function of the partnership with the submittal of the bills, recognizing financial statements, recognize that the advance is critical for the health and well-being of the organization. And so, once again, I guess my bottom line here is that the author of this proposed amendment to the resolution did not express any animosity or against the efforts of the partnership. He was very supportive of them moving forward and for the advance payments to take place. So I hope this message is loud and clear to all those supervisors that participate in the meetings in January to make sure that we do get our advance of $112,000, $112,500, before, almost immediately after that's adopted, because that cash flow situation is an estimate, okay? And it's not much room to play around with when you're talking about $3,000 at all. Now, there's going to be maybe some reduced expenses for reasons we'll talk about in a minute or two, but it's still extremely, extremely tight. And so I didn't have specific discussions with Michelle. I didn't go line item by line item on how she came up with that number. I just accepted it at face value. But it's something that we really have to seriously take into account in any discussions that we could have as board members with the Board of Supervisors to assure that our need is met in an extremely timely fashion in January, whatever has to be done between now and then to make sure that that objective is achieved.
And the rest of the board, keep in mind too that we do have USDA funds that we have not yet drawn down, and that's to the tune of $95,000. That includes expenses as well as staff time that we're leveraging against that. I'd say that we're putting in plenty of time. We put in a lot of time related to the Ballston Spa Economic Development Plan. We are actively engaged in the Town of Malta Economic Development Plan, and those are funds committed to us by the USDA. So those are out there. And also, well, this is going to be a pass through. We received a $5,000 check from the Town of Malta, Global Foundries Town of Malta Foundation, for an activity. I'll get to that in the president's report. And, under new business, I can talk a little bit about potential ways to tighten the belt more.
Right.
This is Steve. One thing that we'll have to keep a close eye on is a new round of Paycheck Protection Program funding. Congress is supposed to pass that today. President should sign it in the next day or so. I would estimate by early January, that facility, those lending facilities will open. And I'm sure that, we'll take a good look at that. You guys will take a good look at that, because another PPP loan, forgivable loan, arriving in, if it can be done quickly in January or even early February, should be most welcome. So I would just say, see what the requirements are going to be. There's at least a chance that the partnership will be eligible for a second PPP loan. We won't know for sure until all the final details on eligibility get released. But that is something that could be very beneficial for the first quarter, in maybe even into early the second quarter, to help out. So stay tuned.
So much for your insight, Steve, and also thank you so much for the hard work that you did on the first round of PPPs. And I think we reached out to you and let you know how grateful we were when we received the forgiveness. So, Supervisor Kuzniers in the Economic Development Committee did also mention that second round of PPP, and keeping the eye on that and ensuring that the partnership does potentially qualify. So we're looking at all of those things.
I just want to say one more thing and then I'll shut up. I do want to thank the Board of Supervisors for passing the resolution, for giving us in terms of any payback that what may have been required due to the low amounts that were received through the payroll, through the bed tax for 2020. So thank you for forgiving the partnership and for allowing us to keep those funds under our jurisdiction. So thank you for that.
I agree. Penny?
Business, are we on to new business? Are we done with the discussion?
Yeah.
Personnel report. Shelby, is that you or is this personnel committee?
Well, I think I'll let Josh get that started. Josh Spain is the chair of our personnel committee. We had a meeting about 2 weeks ago. And Josh, would you like to give us an update?
Yeah, sure. And of course, this is also very fluid because the situation with the personnel in the partnership has also changed even since we had our meeting. So Shelby and the personnel committee, we had a discussion a couple of weeks ago about a proposal with Michelle's resignation. I think at the time, Shelby was recognizing that, with Jenny having been on board for as long as she was, that, perhaps she was at a point that she could take on some more responsibility, and with that would come a little bit more of a bump in salary. And I think along with that, being fully transparent, Jenny was probably viewed as a potential flight risk with, to say the least. So, and I don't mean that in a bad way to disparage Jenny in any way. But basically, with Michelle leaving, instead of just having a straight outright administrative replacement, Shelby had a proposal for and Shelby, I think the title on what's in the appendix here might be a little bit different, because I think it says economic development assistant or administrator, but I think you had actually proposed to beef up the title a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's supposed to be economic development specialist. I can send in.
I don't know. Yeah, it's just the title. The words are all correct. It's just the title. Okay. So again, kind of balancing what was in the proposed budget before we kind of knew what we knew with the Board of Supervisors over the last week. The proposal was to bump up Jenny, bring in a new person who would maybe have a little bit of a higher salary than Michelle, and I may be wrong about that, maybe on par, but frankly, some of the insurance requirements and others would be a little bit lower. So it would be ultimately, and I'm fumbling my words here, Shelby, because I don't have any of the numbers in front of me, but the proposal would essentially net about $25,000 lower than what the 2021 budget was built on. Right. That's kind of it in a nutshell. We would have, good adequate coverage from a staff standpoint. It would be at a lower personnel cost for the year 2021 than was built into the budget. And at least from a transition standpoint, part of the proposal was to have Michelle continue to do the books for about a 90-day period on a contract basis for really pennies on the dollar, really not a huge commitment there. So I think a lot of those different things are wrapped in here. To take a step further, Shelby, in her ongoing, just in the networking that she does, she's kind of continuously has conversations and discussions with people that could be potential employees at some point down the line. And at the same time brought forward a candidate for the role and for the position that she was proposing. So it wasn't, I appreciate what Shelby did, because she didn't just lay something out there and say, here you go, guys. Are you okay with it? Now we got to go figure out what we're going to do. She did the math. She had a candidate. We decided to bring that candidate through some interviews just so that we came to this meeting with, a little bit further advanced than just saying that we got a bunch of things out on the table. And I believe all of those interviews have been conducted as well. So, nice job, Shelby, pulling this all together. It's not really clear to me, and I apologize, what this latest information, what this really means to the whole, to the whole staffing picture and how that factors into the January situation and beyond. But I certainly was in a position to support this, to support the need to bring in somebody. With Jenny's resignation post those discussions, I think it's that much more urgent that we get somebody in and get somebody who can work with Shelby on everything that it takes to run the organization and keep things advancing. So.
Eric Connolly also had an opportunity. The candidate's name is Amy Johnson. we've made a proposal that she would be an economic development specialist, which would be ultimately backfilling Jenny's position and advancing Jenny up to more of a community economic development specialist, and created a new potential job title for her. You know, I'm going to jump ahead and, talk about Jenny's resignation briefly. She did tell me, I think it was right after I went to the Economic Development Committee on the 10th, that she had been approached by a headhunter who made a wonderful offer to her for her talent at a statewide organization. And, I'm having known Jenny for quite some time, and having seen her growth since the time that, this was ultimately her first real paid job. I'm very much proud of her. And, I was not aware when we had our personnel committee that she had been approached, which is fine. That is Jenny's business, not mine. And I was aware that we would lose her if we did not pay her appropriately and recognize her talents and give her that additional responsibility that she deserved and actually earned over the course of this year. So Jenny is, I'm very proud of her. I think that she's done a lot of very important work here, especially in relation to the next wave communities, economic development planning process. Jenny is capable of doing just about anything in our organization, except for the books, but that's a level of responsibility that I delegate. Her star was shown outside of this organization. And I think that, because she was here, the network that she also developed, she was able to show folks how talented she really was. So Jenny is going to be leaving us on December 30th. And, it's with a heavy heart that I have to say that. However, I would never want to hold her back. And I think that, she will continue to be a good partner in economic development in the future. And that's all. So, and as Josh had said, Michelle resigned, I believe it was effective December 11th. She gave us a few weeks notice. Michelle is going back to contract work. One of the things I am proposing is that, this is a friendly departure. This has been a very, very difficult year, not only between COVID, but everything else that all the other challenges that we had to meet. Not necessarily getting deeply entrenched in economic development work. Michelle really saw that her talents would be better served elsewhere, and we really need someone who can wear many hats, not just administration, but also get deeply entrenched in economic development, business retention and expansion, grant writing, community economic development, et cetera. So Michelle has sent us a contract for services, a little over $400 a month. She would charge us $40 an hour to help us transition over the next 90 days. So I'm looking for approval for that. I am also looking for approval for the hiring of Amy Johnson as an economic development specialist. And, she had the opportunity to be interviewed by Josh, by Eric Connolly, as well as by Penny. Penny, unfortunately, who's also on the personnel committee, was not able to attend that. Amy does have a background in working for, essentially what was a local development corporation, a shop of 3 folks. It was originally 2 folks for a while and then expanded to 3 out in the Finger Lakes area. She does have an advanced degree. She has done a lot of, she's actually acutely interested in working in the field of economic development, has done research papers for the Research Foundation of New York, Capital District Regional Planning Commission, and also has attended various courses in economic development through the International Economic Development Council. So the salary would start at $45,000. It is roughly the amount that Michelle was making. Amy will not need health insurance from us, but she would like dental and eye protection. So we have budgeted $25,000 for 2021 in benefits, and that amount that we are going to need will be only $1,400 per year for benefits. So as Josh was saying, there'd be a significant cost savings. So again,
she is aware of the situation that we're in right now, economically.
Amy's
Correct.
going eyes wide open. Yeah.
So
I think that's an important point, Shelby, that, you know, she knows what she's getting into. She can Google the partnership and see everything that's played out in the media and all that. And I mean, frankly, someone who is in that position, who has the economic development background that she has, she doesn't have 35 years of it, but she has the experience. I think based on my discussions with her, she's willing and able to learn, and, you know, she can project manage and those kind of things. Whether you're economic development or you're in some other field, she seems to have those skills and come in and be a quick learner in a lot of ways, but that's not necessarily going to be needed in a lot of cases. But she also knows what she's getting into, and you know, that is an important part of, I think, that, you know, if we think that we're going to go out and run a national search or a local search and get a 25 candidates, I don't think that's the case. But at the same time, I don't feel like we're settling either. So,
Eric, would you like to say anything about your interview?
I just would like to reiterate what Josh said. I love that about this young lady, is that she knows what she's getting into. I spent some time kind of helping her to understand some of the contentiousness that exists around the partnership in regards to how the Board of Supervisors is voting and communicating, and she still wants to do it. So I love fighters, and I think this young lady is got some really sharp skills, some really, you know, strong intellect. I mean, you know, I think she was, what was she, summa cum laude or something on her resume, and it's,
yeah,
right, it's a medium-sized school. It's not like it was some tiny little school. So, I mean, if Shelby needs help and it needs a sharp mind and somebody who really wants to learn economic development, I can't imagine you would find somebody better than this young lady for that type of money.
I concur. My only question is maybe for Justin about, as the board with our fiduciary responsibility, not knowing what we have or what we're going to have, do we hold off on this, or do we just move ahead? I guess this should have been discussed before, but I liked her a lot. I think she'd be a great addition, and she'd give a lot of value to the organization and a lot of contacts. So I think we should, my opinion, I think we should take do we need a resolution to bring it up, a motion?
you need a motion to approve the creation, or approve Amy Johnson as an economic development specialist, earning $14,000 or $45,000 a year, plus dental and eye coverage benefits. Correct, Justin? We need a budget resolution with her salary and her name, correct? Or need a resolution with her?
And historically, we've had the board endorse all hires, bringing on staff and establishing a position. There's a budget impact there that's associated with it that usually gets picked up on a monthly basis if there's adjustments. We're in a weird situation. I get that. I don't know if there's options to tender an offer with a date that is closer to the middle of January. If there's an exigent need to make a fast hire and fast engagement in hopes that, she should be an at-will employee. So if the board or management needs to make a hard correction in the early part of the year in February, then we're gonna, it's kind of like a buyer beware situation. So I would defer to the board's discussion and discretion, and consult with Rocky on whether that payroll changes analysis of how January looks.
Our payroll would be significantly less because it was based on having 3 people on staff and 3 people on staff with 2 of those folks having benefits. We can sit around and wait for folks to make decisions, but the only way that we are going to, the $450,000 has been budgeted in the county budget for 2021. The mechanism for receiving those funds is out there. And there are also other means, as Steve Bulger had said. Thank you for your input about the potential CARES Act funding. And, we haven't even talked about potential private sector funding as well. And on top of that, we are also, by county law, supposed to get 50% of room occupancy tax from Saratoga County. So I understand that there's not clarity on the mechanism yet for receiving this. However, in 2020, we've been pivoting all year long. And I prefer to pivot with the appropriate staff levels so that we can actually fulfill our mission and fulfill our job and duties. So I would probably recommend allowing me to hire her effective January 1. And as hey, let's face it, as I learned last night, tomorrow is not necessarily potentially promised, and we won't know that for a while. So I think we're all aware of the potential shortcomings coming up. However, at the Board of Supervisors meeting, I think we did see that a majority of the supervisors did support our efforts. And let's face it, as an organization, we are a public authority. We are operationally transparent. We meet all of the rules and regulations of the authority's budget office. Our meetings are public. All of our documentation, for the most part, is public and foilable. So I have no qualms about with the Economic Development Committee and providing whatever kind of support and taking their direction as well. So, but I can't do that alone.
Exactly, Shelby. And I think it's one of the points you made is very important. We still have forecast requirements that need to be accomplished as a partnership, especially the good news is we are getting some grant support. Therefore, there are requirements for us to fulfill the responsibilities associated with those grants. So it's very important that we have minimal transition period. And the fact, based on what I've heard from those that interviewed Amy, she's well aware of the situation. So, hopefully things will go smoothly. I'm optimistic. A couple bumps in the road, but as Shelby pointed out, and I pointed out earlier, there is support amongst the Board of Supervisors to continue the operations of the partnership. I think it's very important that we move forward, and I'd like to make a motion that we adopt a resolution to hire Amy Johnson as the Economic Development Specialist at a starting salary of $45,000. That would also include dental and eye protection benefits as well, and other benefit package that other staff receive relative to time off and things like that.
I'll second.
Can we have some discussion on that?
Sure.
Supervisor Kuzners. I'm looking at Amy's resume, and there's no question that she'd be an incredible addition to the partnership in the proposed role. We just had a lengthy discussion about the finances for the partnership. We heard that the bed tax is probably going to come out at just over $153,000, half the bed tax for 2020. Who knows what 2021 will bring. I think that we're going to our budget struggles are not going to go away in the immediate future. I think we can all agree on that. And I would be very troubled to, I don't know if I know I can't support hiring additional staff, certainly before January when, as I indicated, I think the partnership will have greater clarity and from the Board of Supervisors, particularly from the new administration in 2021. I would ask that the board consider holding off this appointment at least until we get into, and I think it was mentioned from another member of the board, possibly mid-January, so that we know how things have been worked out with the county on funding, because this by not filling this position, I think that helps the financial situation currently with the partnership incredibly. And this kind of puts the cart before the horse without clarity on where we're going to be with financing. Now, yes, you're absolutely correct that tax law the law creating the partnership provides for half the bed tax, but that's kind of how we got in the situation where we are for 2020, half the bed tax. And I certainly don't want to repeat this again if we have an opportunity to hold off on this. So I would ask the board to consider at least holding off on this appointment until the January meeting.
And how do we propose that one person do the work of three?
We're doing that in our town right now, Benny.
I think Shelby made a good point about, we have obligations to have things done, and how are we going to give reports and do all the work that needs to be done without a person? If she's willing to take it on as a person of trust and it's a risk, the worst that can happen is that employee is an employment at will and they can go if we don't have budget. But I think that I don't think that that's going to be a huge issue, whatever this board decides. I'm we can take a vote and see if we say, what, Rocky, did you say anything, did your motion say anything about the date? Start date?
You're asking, I'm sorry, you're asking me, Penny?
Yeah, you made the motion.
Yes, January 1st.
January 1st. Well, I say we put the vote forward and see if you want to abstain or oppose it. Let's just see where the board goes with it.
I would suggest this be a roll call vote. So for the record and for clarity.
Does anybody have the list? I could probably
Do okay, so we have Brendan Schutte,
Yes.
Penny Hill,
yes.
Rocky made the motion. Benny Zlotnick,
Yes.
Eric Connolly, yeah. Josh Spain,
Yes.
Steve Bulger,
No.
Todd Kuzners.
No.
So that's 6 yeses and 2 noes.
So the motion carries with 6 yeses and 2 noes to hire Amy on January 1st. Make an offer.
Yes. She still has to accept it.
Okay.
Thank you. I will quickly, we're burning daylight here. This is actually the shortest day of the year, by the way. Yay.
That's right.
Yeah, Supervisor Darren O'Connor on November 30th sent his letter of resignation. He is no longer going to be serving as a board member. And I'll read it verbatim. Pursuant to section 3 of the bylaws, I'm resigning from the partnership board effective today. While I no longer be a board member, I'm very encouraged by your efforts to foster a unified front for economic development in Saratoga County, however difficult that task appear at present. As required in the bylaws, this copy of the letter, I am notifying Saratoga County and Secretary Kuzniers. Thanks. Many thanks for your attention to this matter. Very truly yours, Darren O'Connor. And he also did copy Preston Allen, Chairman of the County Board of Supervisors, as well as Todd Kuznier, Secretary of the Board. So thank you very much, Darren, for your service. I also, like I said, I've got a contract for services for bookkeeping with Michelle Battle at $400 a month, well, roughly $40 an hour, not to exceed a period of 90 days without reconsideration and after 90 days. So can I get a motion for that? I think I will need approval for that.
So moved.
Mm-hmm.
Nick.
Second.
I'll second.
Josh.
Okay.
Favor?
Aye.
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 I,
Grace?
I also, given our very challenging financial situation and the fact that we have roughly 2,000 square feet here at the Saratoga Partnership offices, I have been in discussions with Michelle Howard, who handles leasing here, as well as the Dake family, Bill and Gary, about potentially vacating the premises as of January 1. And like I said, we have roughly 2,000 square feet. We pay about $3,300 a month in our lease. And I do have the potential for co-locating at the Saratoga County Chamber of Commerce for roughly $700 a month, plus common area and utilities, but we would be saving a significant amount of money, taking about 2 offices. And I'd be able to pull the trigger on that. I think there are some logistical things that's only 2 weeks away. We have the holidays and the new year between now and then, but the Stewart's has offered flexibility as far as I'm sure they're not going to fill the space as of January 1, but they do want to be supportive and see us try to tighten our belt as much as possible.
That's a significant savings from what we're paying now.
Sorry, go ahead, Penny.
No, I just said it was a significant savings from what we are currently paying and for what we need now. So I think it's a really good move.
Shelby, does that mean, when you say flexibility, does that mean that you may discontinue the lease payments in January, but you may have a little bit of a grace period to get everything, we may have a little bit of grace period to get everything cleared out? I just think logistically in the next 2 weeks, can all that happen?
I'm going to attempt it. Yes, I do have that period.
All right.
Yeah, I'd like to also say it sounds like a good move for financial reasons, but also for professional reasons as well, in terms of promoting collaborative partnerships out there with those that are promoting economic development, and obviously the chamber, those types of activities. So by co-locating, it allows for both formal and informal conversations to take place. What could be done in terms of working collaboratively to promote certain programs and activities in order to enhance the economic viability of, once again, existing businesses and new businesses coming into the county by working with our partner organizations, in this case, being in the same office location, co-locating with the chamber. And I understand that SCDC is also located in that same building as well. I know that, the merger issue is, it's a discussion for tomorrow, but the fact is, still requires working together as best we can and taking the taking a higher approach in terms of working for the best of the county. And I know Shelby is, has expressed support for that historically as well in working with everyone moving forward. So I think it's a good move for financial reasons as well as professional support purposes.
I think this would also give us extra card in our deck at the Board of Supervisors, showing that we are being proactive, trying to cut down on our expenses. And like Rocco just said, working also with another group that does economic development, being in the same building, it kind of, people can visit one or two of the places at the same time, co-locating space. I think it's a great move, and it shows a real effort on our part to try to tighten our belts, even more than people want us to.
Great. Anybody want to make a motion? We need that.
I'll make that motion, Penny. Brendan here.
I'll second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
You're gonna have
Motion carried. Was that something?
discussion.
Oh, discussion? Okay. No discussion? Motion carries to have a co-locate with the chamber for a new office. President's reports next.
Did you ask for no's, just to clarify that?
I asked for anybody opposed, and I didn't hear any.
Okay, thank you. All right. Again, last day of the year, we're burning daylight here. President's report. I think I started out by telling you that we received, in partnership with the Town of Malta Economic Development Committee, otherwise known as Malta Works, and the Saratoga County Chamber of Commerce, a program to help secure small businesses, retail businesses, and commercial businesses in the town of Malta for the months of January, February, and March. Global Foundries, thank you so much, Global Foundries. Brendan Chudy is on the board, but not in the Malta Foundation. They awarded us that money last week, and actually the check came in the mail today. So I had a meeting this morning, and we plan on deploying that and creating promotional campaigns again to support our, especially restaurants, hospitality, over the course of January, February, and March. It is a nominal amount of money. However, this amount could have a strong impact. And the reason why the partnership was the organization to make the application is because we are a 501c3 not-for-profit. So we did qualify for that grant. And we will be working together with them. Let's see. Business retention and expansion. Let's see. G&G Lighting. I think we talked about the fact that that Startup New York program, we started back with them in January. We do technically have a lease with G&G Lighting for their building in the town of Half Moon. And that was announced by SUNY Albany. That actually created a lot of interesting activity. We do have another potential Startup New York applicant coming to the town of Half Moon. They are an existing Startup New York company, and we are working with them in SUNY Albany on the potential of allocating space under the partnership's name, which would also require us to get into the same leasehold arrangement with them. Businesses business retention and expansion, I think, we're all aware of the new CARES Act funding. And I think that we, along with our partners, will be kicking it into high gear to ensure that we get the word out and help businesses or not-for-profits navigate, the future funding programs. Let's see. CDL training and testing. I am working with an organization that is seeking to potentially open a 2 to 3 acre CDL testing site. If you are not aware, a CDL driver is essentially a truck driver, short haul as well as long haul. There is a nationwide shortage. And, as you might have read in the newspapers, Skinnell Properties, which has a great reputation in developing warehouse and logistics hubs for Fortune 200 companies like Amazon, is seeking to purchase property at the Luther Forest Technology Campus. As we have learned from our warehouse and logistics economic index that we did back in June of 2019, we learned that there is definitely a talent shortage and folks are seeking talent or our warehouse and logistics sector throughout Saratoga County, whether it's Target, Ace Hardware, Logistics One, Cisco. We have many warehouse and logistics providers throughout Saratoga County, and they are all competing for the same thing, and that is the warehouse workers as well as the drivers. And increasing the availability of potential training options here in this area will hopefully expand the labor pool here. We've got increasing pressure from areas like Montgomery County, which has a significant warehouse and logistics sector between their Target distribution warehouse, the Dollar General facility, as well as the Amazon last mile distribution facility. And then we have the Amazon facility in Skodak. So, as the partnership in our work in workforce development, if we can help grow the pie and grow the pool and increasing the availability of training, we are not putting strain on our existing businesses, which means that we are fulfilling our role in business retention and expansion. And I believe that this is something that we can move forward with the partnership of our Saratoga County Employment and Training Center and our Workforce Development Board to secure WIOA funding, federal funding to help in those training efforts. Let's see. Albany Can Code Digital Literacy Program, we are working with them on, as well as the Veterans Council of the region and a few other not-for-profit organizations to try to encourage folks to take digital literacy courses, which will hopefully move those people into other coding and workforce training programs and increase the availability of their skills. To move on to next, we have Communities Initiative. We are almost finished with our It's Time to Come Home study with Being Communications. I actually gave a presentation about the intent of working with the towns of Hadley, Day, Edinburgh, Corinth, and Bean to identify talent and position those communities to potentially attract talent. And that could potentially turn into a marketing campaign. This program was funded by the Saratoga County Board of Supervisors. Last year, they put together an economic development fund of $150,000, 7,100 of which each town got for specific economic development initiatives. I worked closely with them to try to work on a regionalized economic development approach so that their plans would move forward. The next potential step of this program would mean we could create an economic development plan for those communities. Something that we had done in the summer was, on their behalf, apply for a Northern Borders grant. There was more demand for those funds. I believe there were about $15 million in requests for $5 million in funds. But once we get this B&E study in place and then we are able to start to implement a plan, the goal is to attract potential talent and a remote workforce. It would be to increase demand and the ability to expand broadband infrastructure in the northern towns. Communities in the Adirondack Park have a significant issue with talent retention, which has an impact on their volunteers for fire departments, planning boards, zoning boards, municipal government, et cetera. So the way to work with them is to, the first economic development goal for them is talent attraction, and also marketing their leisure and hospitality sector to promote leisure and hospitality tourism types of businesses that can be started or grown in those areas. Economic development means much different things to much different communities throughout our area. The next wave communities, Ballston Spa. The community last month, after our economic development plan was launched in October, one of the recommendations was to move forward with updating their master plan or their comprehensive plan, which hasn't been updated since 1994. And they have started the process. We made an introduction to Capital District Regional Planning Commission, which provides technical assistance to those folks, as well as the Capital District Transportation Committee. They have started that process. They are also looking at working on rezoning. About 3 weeks ago, Jenny and I brought a developer down to the village of Ballston Spa to look at potential sites for workforce housing and age-in-place senior housing. We also brought along someone from the Department of Housing and Community Renewal, which oversees the funding sources, similar to the funding sources that were applied to for the redevelopment of the Victory Specialty Packaging Building that we announced in December of 2019. That is a $60 million workforce development project on the other side of the county, but they use a combination of tax credits to attract this. Workforce housing and senior housing were two priorities identified in their economic development plan, and we're moving forward with that. We're also working with them on their their Complete Streets program, which was launched last month, and their connectivity study to connect them with the Zim Smith Trail. And we also had a meeting with the county Trails Committee chairperson, as well as the Chamber of Commerce and people who are actively involved in trail extension, to work on the final extension of the Zim Smith Trail from the village of Ballston Spa to the Spot State Park. And this could be done in many different ways, but that was a very productive meeting. And we've also worked with various potential investors and developers who are interested in redevelopment projects or bringing businesses to Ballston Spa. We've had one specifically open up, a small restaurant. I'm working with at least 2 to 3 other small businesses looking to open in the village of Ballston Spa. And we are working with the developer of the former Angelica site, which is a 6.5 acre property in the village of Ballston Spa, on potential development options there and with potential investors. So that plan is moving forward and becoming, is being implemented at a pretty rapid clip, and we're pretty proud of that. I think I talked about New York State Housing and Community Renewal. I'm also working with a workforce housing developer in the city of Saratoga Springs. They are also seeking some tax credit funding, and they have about 4,000 square feet of retail space in the first floor of that building, and they are looking at putting in a childcare center. So we worked with them, the Bright Side Up, which used to be the Capital Region Child Care Council, as well as a large childcare provider in the area to start working with them and identifying how they could open a childcare facility in this building, which would contain about 55 units of various tiers of workforce housing. Let's see. I had a meeting where we've started the Next Wave Communities Malta process. We have done probably 15 to 20 interviews so far with stakeholders, whether it's town board, department heads, members of the Comprehensive Plan Committee, members of the Economic Development Plan Committee. And the next step would be creating focus groups and doing community outreach and engagement before we start that plan. That is directly tied with work that we were attempting to do. We were going to do a study at Luther Forest Technology Campus. We're a little short on funds for that. I think if we had received our fourth quarter funding, we would have moved forward with that in partnership with the town of Malta, town of Stillwater, National Grid, New York State Electric and Gas, Center for Economic Growth, and potentially SEDC was a partner of that in the beginning. But now it makes sense to put this project on hold since Scannell Properties is seeking to develop about 245 acres of property within the campus for a logistics hub. I had a meeting with the folks leading that charge, as well as Pyramid Brokerage Firm, and they anticipate creating about 1,000 jobs over the next 5 to 6 years. They do build property on spec. They work with Fortune 200 companies. And this needs to go through the town of Malta for a plan development district amendment, because it currently does not include, that campus plan does not include warehouse and logistics. So I know that the town is open to it. We are open to working with them, but it makes no sense in putting together a plan to attract semiconductor manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, or the life sciences industry that is now onshoring. If we are going, if the town is very much interested in working with Scannell and developing that as a warehouse and logistics hub. They are a very talented group of folks. They are very, very talented, and they tend to attract many companies to a region when they start building on spec. So I'm confident that when that does move forward, they plan on having a shovel in the ground by August, and that site will most likely be developed in the way that they are planning and proposing to the town. Let's see. I know we've taken up a lot of time. Everything else, for the most part, is listed in the president's report. I would like to talk about, just briefly, I had a meeting with a Protecting Our Civil Assets meeting with many stakeholders in Saratoga County, and I think this is valuable for us all. It included NYRA, Dave O'Rourke, Elizabeth Sobel from Saratoga Performing Arts Center, representatives from the Casino and Raceway, Skidmore, City Center Authority, Discover Saratoga. Elise Stefanik gave us an update on the CARES Act in that meeting, and we also had Angelo Calboni from Saratoga Hospital talking about, number one, the deployment of the COVID vaccine and what we should be expecting for that here in Saratoga County and beyond. What our environment looks like right now. And then we started talking about what we should anticipate for the late spring and summer, what we expect from our summer season, which drives a majority of our business, our room occupancy tax. I know that business meetings, there is robust demand based on the fact that we do have multiple vaccines in place, plus we do have significant amount of therapeutics and preventative measures like masks and other things, a lot more education than we had back in March. So it's my understanding that NYRA expects to have a season with fans. I know that SPAC is talking about, they've lost a lot of money in 2019, or 2020, not being able to open 2021. They have multiple scenarios for potentially opening. You know, again, the casino and raceway are business meetings. There's heavy demand for folks to come back to Saratoga and, you know, put heads in beds in the third and fourth quarter of 2021. And, you know, as we see this vaccine deployed and people gain confidence in the safety measures and in the safety of this vaccine, and the more we see more people take it, the point that we could potentially reach herd immunity as soon as late spring, early summer, gives us a lot of potential confidence. I know that there are a lot of folks that want to get out, and also this digital communications is just not working for folks and associations and other organizations that depend on professional networking. And again, 2020, the second and or third and fourth quarters of 2021, as well as 2022, demand is robust for booking these things, but a lot of it is going to be contingent on how this health crisis is mitigated through the vaccine. So that's all I have for my president's report for now. But I just, before we go, this is our last meeting of 2020. I have to say it has been a year unlike any other that I think Saratoga County has seen. I know that I took over in January at the beginning part of the year, and this organization is still relatively young. We are 5 years old. We've had some challenges and unfortunate internal competition in Saratoga County. However, I do remain committed to a unified front of transparent economic development in Saratoga County. I think it's critical that we have public-private partnerships. You know, as we've seen, the private sector can't necessarily carry the weight of economic development entirely, and we have to work in partnership with our municipal officials and our community leaders to make sure that the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years in Saratoga County is prosperous. So I just want to thank you all for the opportunity to let me take a leadership role. You know, I've tried to do my best under extremely challenging circumstances. I don't think that anyone would have foreseen that we would have in our coffers in December $300,000 in bed tax, you know, available to fund our mission. And I don't think that was the intent of, you know, a global pandemic was the intent of the folks that asked us to do our best with 50% of room occupancy tax revenue back in December of 19 when that resolution was passed. So, you know, we've done our best, and, you know, I remain committed to our mission, which is business retention and expansion, community economic development, which I think is critical. You know, I think it's important that a mechanism like the Saratoga Partnership does exist because we're a local development corporation. We're a 501c3 not-for-profit corporation. We do have bonding authority. We have the legal mechanisms in place that we can bring outside funding into Saratoga County to help our communities grow, to help our businesses thrive. And I hope that in the future with the Board of Supervisors and also the private sector folks that we are able to fulfill this mission in one way, shape, or form. But thank you.
Challenge. And I would be remiss to not thank Jenny Kelly too for her contributions to this. And this will be her final meeting with us, but appreciate everybody who's stuck through this whole whatever this 2020 was, and let's hope for a better new year coming up. Well said, Shelby.
Thank you.
Okay.
I would just like to add that I have, when I this board in January, I had one idea of what was happening with community development and economic development. And I got to say that watching Shelby and her staff, 3 people working as hard as 3 people possibly can, especially during this pandemic, things that they have done to help out our small businesses in every community in the county, not just mine, although I've seen it personal up close here in Milton and in the village of Ballston Spa, that I think the 3 of you have had done an incredible job this year. And I'm very happy and proud to be part of this organization for this year.
Okay.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Okay.
I say we need a motion to adjourn.
5:41 motion.
Motion.
So move, Josh.
Josh?
Second.
Second. Happy holidays, everybody. Let's try for a better new year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh.
Happy
Bye.
holiday.
Stay well, stay healthy.